Hello world, and thank you again for joining me today on this another wonderful awesome Taco Tuesday. Give me a shout out in the comments if you also like tacos as much as I do. So what do we got going on today? Well, as per my previous video about going over all of the security points that I went over in that video, I was going to make a video for each of those points to go more in depth. So this being the first one in line, I want to talk today about Linux. And before we get to that, I also wanted to share some news, kind of just do some housekeeping for the channel. So, wanted to share the official site again, so that you can find any of the stuff that I am coming out with. I'm going to make it available as a PDF on the site. I will show you. I'll make another video to show where that's going to go. I'm also going to put the links to all of these in the description for these videos as well, so it shouldn't be that hard. If you actually wanted it, I'll make it super easy for you to get it. So the first little road trip that I'm taking this year is I am going to MizCon, and I am going with my best friend and her family, and it is going to be awesome. I know here on the site, I mentioned dressing as Rainbow Bride. I'm not so sure that's really going to happen, but I will try, and it will still be awesome. May or may not leave with a pet trouble like last year. Never know. I did want to maybe see about trying Spanish ropes for my niece, because they were there last time and she really wanted me to try it. So maybe I will this year. I don't know. So as far as that goes, yeah, so look forward to that. That is at the end of May. I will be there. So let me know in the comments if you're going to be there too. That would be awesome. I would love to meet some of you guys. So if you do feel so inclined, we would always appreciate any donations. That's really easy. You can just come to the website, indigocts.net, and it's right here. Right, and if you wanted to subscribe to the newsletter when I get that going, you can do that right here as well, and that would be greatly appreciated. And other contact information, you guys can always email me at indigocts at gmail. Here is the Discord server. You can also find me on Facebook and Twitter at indigocts. Telegram, you can reach me at t.me/indigocts. And that would be it for that. So let's get into Linux, you guys. Funny story about Linux. I was not looking forward to taking the class. I was required to take one class as part of my degree, and I was not looking forward to it. But I had to do it, and actually, the only reason why I didn't like it, it wasn't because of Linux itself, it was just because of the way the class was designed. But despite that, actually, it started to grow on me, and I was like, hey, this is actually really neat, and it's really cool. There's a couple of things that a lot of people don't get or know about Linux until you actually get into the community. Is Linux is more of a catch-all term for a group of operating systems based on what's called a kernel. For you non-techies out there, that's just the core set of programs that the whole operating system is based off of. And in terms of operating system, when you turn on your computer and it boots up Windows for you to use, that's your operating system. For you Mac users out there, Mac OS on that Macintosh Apple computer you're using, that is the operating system. And do you see how it's not Windows? There are actually, for you Mac lovers out there are actually some similarities to the way Linux is displayed and used that is very similar to Mac, because the kernels are the very basic of those operating systems. The kernels are either very similar, if not the same. I'm going to go with fairly similar. We had no classes on Mac OS, so I'm gonna have to defer to people in more knowledge on that subject than me. So, as far as Linux goes, there are several what's called distributions that are available to use. The more common one that I actually use on my personal computer is Ubuntu. And that is this little penguin guy with this little guy on his belly. These penguins actually are supposed to represent Linux as a whole. So that's why this picture that I found I thought was super cute. This symbol right here is for Linux Kali, which is a distribution of Linux that is used by penetration testers and ethical hackers, and it comes loaded with oh my goodness, just so many programs. It's like, and you have to know how to use them. I actually got my hands on the ISO file to install it. So I did it. I put it on a virtual machine just because I wanted to click around on it and see what it came loaded with. And holy cow, you guys, man, you really gotta you gotta know, because I could spend like the next 5 years just exploring what all those do and looking them up. Oh my goodness. So there's those two. Then there's other versions that can be more corporate based, like CentOS with this little guy on his belly, and Red Hat. Fedora, I'm not as familiar with. And SUSE. These are just the more popular of all of the Linux distributions. And if I'm actually at some point going to make a video, or videos maybe, for each of these, if I can get my hands on the ISO file, which is the file that you use to install it and play around with it on a virtual machine, and like, just let's see what it does. Obviously Ubuntu and Kali are not going to be that surprising to me because I've already poked around on Kali, but I want to look again. And we'll make a video for it because I thought it was pretty interesting. So yeah, that is a little bit more about Linux from a programming perspective on Linux. So what I learned when I first started to learn how to program, we started with Microsoft's C# and Python, which is based on Linux. And I hated it at first. I hated having to try to do it on a Windows computer because it didn't like to cooperate, and it actually kind of started to grow on me now, and how much easier it is to use and how much easier it is to program in general if you're doing it on a Linux computer. And there is some beauty in the language. It's more simplified. I've kind of really grown to like it. So there's that from a programming perspective. You could still code in C# and actually any language you want to on Linux. There is a VS Code available to program in those languages. You can't get actual Visual Studio that you could load onto a Windows computer, which is a more heavy duty, like, oh my gosh. But I actually like it. I like coding in C# as well. As far as Linux versus Microsoft goes, Windows goes, I know Windows has its place, and it's really, really, really helpful for users that just need things to work, that just need things to happen for them, and I get that, and that's wonderful. I personally started to get annoyed with it when it was doing things that I didn't necessarily want it to do or need it to do, and I got really frustrated with that. And I can only surmise that Windows 11 is just going to be worse at it. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to make the switch to Linux and just figure out how to make the same things happen that I used to be able to do on a Windows machine. Which, you know what, I'm pretty much there. The only fight I have left as far as Linux goes is getting Steam to want to cooperate, because Linux doesn't like to... You have to force it to let you play games that are for Windows machines, like, say, Sims, which I did actually manage to get that to get that done. Sims and any games on Steam. So there is that. There is that precaution. It is very command line heavy, which means you have to have the terminal open, which is basically like the command prompt, where you have to like type in and tell it what to do, which means you have to know what to type. So it does require a lot of that. So you just got to know what to tell it or know where to look. The great part about that is you can create what's called script files, which actually I will do a video on that too, on scripts. So what a script file does is you can call it from your command line, and it'll call a text file that you've already written with another set of commands for it to execute. So that way you can get more, a whole series of commands done by actually only typing one. So that is really helpful too if you anticipate having to do the same process over and over and over again. Then I would suggest writing a script file for Linux, especially like if it means, let's say you're an administrator and you want to make changes on several machines. You don't want to have to type this long list of commands on all those machines over and over again, do you? No. You're going to turn it into a file and then take that file to each of the machines to get it done. Boom. So there's that. That's really handy. So yeah, it's really command line heavy. I kind of liken it, as far as computers go, to as the difference between starting to drive in an automatic car and then eventually learning how to drive a manual transmission, a stick shift. Win-win for me, because I like driving stick shifts. So I just like the idea of having the more control. So that's just me. I do believe that was it as far as Linux goes for now. I just thought I would put that out there. I do intend on doing deeper dive videos into each of these distributions here. Particularly, actually, I'll start with Ubuntu and then Kali, just to show you the stark difference, because it's just hilarious. When you go to install Linux Kali, you actually have the option to install just the command line version, where there's no graphics. It's all command line. That's it, and that's all it installs. And so you have to call everything by command, or you can install the graphical version, which everybody is familiar with, where you click on things. So yeah, that should be interesting. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about any of this stuff. If there are any particular quirks or things that you've heard about any of these distributions that you want me to make sure to note in said videos, yeah, do let me know, and I will happily do so. And yeah, I do believe that is it for Linux for today, guys. Thanks again for joining me. I wish you all lots of tacos on this Tuesday, and I'm probably gonna have some too. Alright, see ya.